Welcome to the Reclaim Leader podcast. I'm Jason Tucker.
And I'm Jesse Skiffington.
We're two pastors in the trenches who are passionate about church health for greater gospel impact.
We share the ups and downs of ministry, strategies that worked for us,
and some that didn't.
Best practices and practical tools for church leadership.
The goal, to help all of our churches flourish. Let's get started.
See another sunrise, sing a little song.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Reclaim Leader podcast. Jesse just got his hat off in time.
Let me see. Beautiful. How's my hair, Jason?
I think, it's great. You got a lovely head of hair.
Do you ever have those things where it happened like you're trying to get a haircut for like a month? Maybe you cut your own hair. I don't know. Yours looks pretty good. But the lady that cuts my hair has been traveling, and then I was traveling, and I'm like, now I look like my hair looks like it did in the 90s, man, when I was like in high school. It's long and
hey, listen, consider yourself lucky. The rest of us have thinning hair. So listen.
Fair point.
You're doing great. You're winning. Hashtag winning.
I love it.
Anyway, welcome to the podcast. If you're new with us, I'm so sorry. No, just kidding. It's been great getting to see all of our kind of new listeners or new watchers on our YouTube channel. And just a reminder, we do have all of these. We stream these on YouTube. And so we're getting more and more traction there. It's been really fun to see, and fun really just talking with pastors about leading change. That's the beating heart of why we're doing what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And if you find the podcast valuable, I want to encourage you to keep sharing it with your colleagues as you have been. Folks have been with us a long time. Episode 401. I feel like we're in this new chapter, a new phase of the podcast on the other side of 400. So it's exciting. And man, it's a lot of words, Jesse, as we say.
It's good stuff, though. And I love what we're talking about today. I'm glad. I mean, we started early on talking change in the church and all of that and leading that well. And part of the conversation all the way through is, how do we pass the baton to the next generations? How do we reach those that are coming up? How do we develop leaders in the next generations to become the leaders of the church as we go along? And so today's conversation is kind of in that lane. We're talking college ministry a little bit specifically. There's so much we can learn from Allison about how do we make sure we're being attentive to that next generation that really is open to the gospel, and then to come alongside them. And I love where we land with this, and just an invitation to relationship. And that's actually takes the pressure off, because I think these young people just want to have a place, want to have people that are caring about them, looking out for them. So really grateful for the conversation today.
Yeah, me too. And if you've noticed, folks who've been listening with us, that we've been leaning way more into talking about Gen Z and ministry and church, and because it feels like a really important time, and a time that you don't want to miss the opportunity, because it feels like Gen Z is ready for the gospel. And I just feel like, come on, churches, this is your time. It is time to step up your game and start connecting with and ministering to college students. Or if you don't have a reach into any college students, let's say you're in a town and it's kind of in the middle of the country, you don't have a lot of college students there, you certainly can pray or send financial support to people who are on the front lines doing it. Mm-hmm. Because as you'll hear from Allison, there are definitely more hands for the harvest needed. But anyway, let's get into our conversation. This is Allison Stump. She's a local area director from Athletes InterVarsity, and we got to know her because Tower Hill sponsors her, or is part of the sponsorship of her job. And I say it in the interview, but we came across an email newsletter that she gives out to all of her donors, and about these amazing things happening in the college ministry. So it was really great to talk with her. So here's our interview with Allison Stump. We are so excited to have Allison on the podcast today. She is the Associate Area Director and also does Campus Director at some locations with Athletes InterVarsity in New York and New Jersey. Our church, Tower Hill, we support her work there, specifically at nearby Monmouth University. We got a newsletter from Allison a couple of months ago that woke us up. We've been supporting her for a while, and we saw pictures of an event where over 40 students were baptized, and there's this great picture of a football player whose legs were hanging out of the tub because he didn't fit in the baptismal vessel that they were using. And it got all of us on staff thinking, what is going on and how can we hear about it and know more and support her work? And this is very much in line with what we've been talking about on the podcast in our churches about the openness of Gen Z and what that means and how to reach them. So welcome to the podcast, Allison Stump.
Thank you so much. So glad to be here.
Well, Allison, tell us, I mean, we don't know each other really. And so I would love to hear a bit on your journey. How did you get to where you are as associate area director or being involved with Athletes InterVarsity? Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Sure. So I would say I became a believer probably when I was a senior in high school. I started going to Bible study and learning more about what it meant to follow Jesus. And then, that was right before I went away to college. So I went to Susquehanna University. I was really excited because I was going to be on the field hockey team there. And when I got to college, it felt like faith was something that kind of took a back burner for a while. And it wasn't until I joined InterVarsity, which is a campus ministry, the campus ministry that I work for now. I joined InterVarsity as a sophomore after an entire summer of praying, realizing, I'd pretty much drifted pretty far from the faith my freshman year. It was just focused on all the things that my teammates were focused on. Joined InterVarsity, and during that time, that's when I started realizing, wow, hey, this is amazing. I'm now involved in a small group. I'm now going to church. My life looks different than it did last year. But there was still this disconnect between my faith and who I was around my teammates versus who I was with my InterVarsity chapter. So it was actually the chapter president of the time who really helped me to start a team Bible study. And so I started this field hockey team Bible study as a sophomore, and that helped me to really bridge the gap. And what was interesting was all of my teammates who I had invited to church, invited to InterVarsity, who never wanted to go, they were actually open to having this like dorm team Bible study. And I think it had something to do with just the familiarity of each other, the familiarity of me. And there was like 10 of my teammates who came to this first Bible study. And from there on out, I was, hosted these weekly spaces where I saw teammates learn how to read the Bible for the first time, saw them learning how to pray, started going to church with me even. And it was because of this entry point that I think changed a lot of things for them, changed a lot of things for me and how I saw myself and my influence that I could have on campus. And from there, that's where my love for ministry and specifically athlete ministry, I think, started. So fast forward, I graduated. I came on staff with InterVarsity. I started at the College of New Jersey as a campus staff there, working full time. And over time, we started chapter planting more athlete chapters, more chapters in general. So we planted at Monmouth University, and we also planted at Rider University, which is another campus that I'm at as well. And then just this past year was promoted to an associate area director. And so that's been really cool to be a campus staff, but also to help other InterVarsity staff to be able to grow and to be able to kind of, grow their chapters and help them to develop as well.
That's awesome. It's amazing to me. One of the things that it's hard to not notice is how athletics seem to be a vehicle for the gospel in a different way. And I just from personal experience, my son, Jason, he just finished his sophomore year of high school, which I can't even believe. It was through athletics, specifically FCA, that he owns his faith in a completely different way than he did before. And for him, it was always going to be, I think, athletics, because that's what he is paying attention to as an athlete. And something about the contagious faith of what can happen as you're part of a team and an athlete. I am just blown away by what I've seen. I'm seeing it in colleges. We got students from this church, right, different colleges who are leading Bible studies and all these things. And there's all this openness. And I just feel bad for Tim Tebow, man. He took it on the chin for years. And now it's like normal to sort of get up and talk about Jesus when you win a national championship. Right. So I don't know. I mean, how have you seen, kind of before we get to Monmouth specifically, how have you seen that openness kind of ramp up over the years? Because you've had a firsthand view.
Yeah, I think it definitely is becoming, it's more common, it's more in the public eye. I think that what I've seen with athletes, I think, are just natural leaders to begin with. They understand the importance of being a team, being united, kind of all being on the same page. And I totally agree. I think there's something really special about once you get one teammate, one person on a team who's committed, who wants to see change happen. I think that it just is so easy for these things to just kind of like take off and to be able to then continue to last for years. Once you've kind of shifted the culture on a team, I've seen that it lasts like generation after generation, because more, they're having these team Bible studies. They're also developing the next generation under them. If a senior is leading a football team Bible study and the freshman comes in and that's all that they know, like, oh, we do team Bible study every Sunday night. And on the away games, we get together, on the bus and pray before games. They're just going to want to like continue that. It usually just takes that one brave person to kind of break the ice on a team. And then there's so much opportunity for change and transformation that can happen just through that.
Yeah, I love it. I think what's really cool in the university world too, or the college ministry stuff, is that you're always passing the baton of leadership because there's always people passing through. And that's one of the things way back when I worked with campus ministry stuff myself. And I just appreciated the urgency of leadership handoffs. And I've been searching for how do we do that well in the life of the established church later on, because there's a naturally occurring leadership transition that just has to happen in on teams or in college ministry that doesn't take place quite the same way later on. And so I love that. I think that's a really cool vision for, how are these athletes passing that vision for, Bible study and following Jesus as athletes on campus. It's good stuff.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I mean, typically for like a senior leader, I usually start preparing them if they're a junior, like the summer before their senior year, to start thinking about, okay, who are you investing in now? Who are you going to be apprenticing? Who's on your list? Who are you praying for? And really start kind of the apprenticeship model that we do is like they're almost like training their fall semester, and by spring semester they're pulling back. They're kind of watching the next generation start to lead, and they're giving feedback while they're still there. And so it's like it is a really quick turnaround, especially on the community colleges where some students are only there for 2 years. It's even faster turnaround. But it's something that we're constantly thinking of. We always say, we could be potentially one generation away from like losing this chapter if we're not continuously thinking about leadership development. Yeah,
so good.
And that urgency, I feel like that's what the church is missing, because I think we're under the illusion that we have all this time to develop people. And so we don't. I don't know. We just like we'll get around to it. But with you, oh my gosh, I could just imagine how exhausting that is.
On the other side, the urgency.
These great leaders, and then
it's unrelenting, right? Yeah. Maybe we need to start doing 4-year classes of people at church. Jason, is what you like, just rotate.
All right. Through. Good luck with that. Anyway, to paint a picture for us about what it was like when you kind of first started at Monmouth University. I'm just asking specifically, selfishly, because we're right next to Monmouth, and I'm really curious about how that grew. Because I remember hearing you early on in your tenure. It was really just getting things going.
Right.
But I'd love to hear. Paint us a picture of what that was like.
Yeah. So I think there's been ministry happening at Monmouth for a long time. But I don't know that it's been at a place where it's been now, where it feels like it's really flourishing at Monmouth. So I had actually helped a former colleague of mine try to plant an InterVarsity chapter at Monmouth back in like 2015. And so she had started, and the school had kind of said, we already have Campus Crusades. We're not really looking for another ministry. And so we kind of took the angle of, oh, what if we are planting something that's just specifically for athletes? And they said, okay, that's fine. And so because I was working with athletes at the college in New Jersey, I would go with her a couple times to campus, helped her kind of like get things a little bit off the ground. And then when she transitioned off staff, the chapter kind of went dormant for a while. And so at that time, I was actually trying to plant at Brookdale Community College. And so I was going once a week. I live in Yardley, Pennsylvania, so I live about an hour away. And so I was going once a week, trying to mentor a couple of students at Brookdale. By the end of the semester, they had kind of decided they wanted to just be involved in already existing campus ministry, which was fine. But every time I was going to Brookdale, I was passing by Monmouth, and my heart was kind of breaking for that ministry that used to be there. There was like maybe like 20 or so athletes that were gathering weekly for Bible study. That was kind of like no longer existent. So on my way home from Brookdale, I would like drive through Mama's campus. I would do kind of like a modified prayer walk. I would call my prayer drive, where I'd drive around the campus and I'd pray over the athletic fields and I'd pray over the space, and just was continuing to ask God, like, hey, is there something that, do we want to get started back up here again? And once things kind of shut down with Brookdale, I talked to my supervisor and I was like, hey, what do you think about me just shifting my hours to Monmouth instead? Like, I really would love to see something here again. I've been praying for them pretty consistently. And she said, yeah, I'm sure that's fine. So I actually brought an intercessor with me. I think it was like March 2019. And we were praying. We actually did a walk on campus. It wasn't just a drive, but we were walking on campus, and she kind of got this sense. She's like, hey, I think there's like a track and field student that you need to connect with. So I was like, okay, let me pray for this track and field student. And maybe like not even a week or two later, I ended up meeting Chibuzo, and she is on the track and field team. She was actually from my hometown, which is Ewing, New Jersey. And I was like, this is it. This is the person we've been praying for. So I started meeting with her like pretty consistently, started mentoring her, started planting this idea of, what if we started this chapter up again at Monmouth? So as I was meeting with her, I was also bringing students with me from TCNJ to help me do some chapter planting. I was like, let's go around, talk to some athletes, see if we can meet anybody who's interested in something like this. And it was one day we were in the cafeteria and we actually met this freshman football player. His name was Ali. Again, this is back in like, I think 2018. And I said, hey, is this like kind of planted the idea for Athletes InterVarsity? Hey, what do you think about like gathering athletes together to be able to study scripture and to grow, like kind of envision for like seeing your own teams being reached? And he goes, oh, I think I'm already kind of doing something like that. I do a weekly Bible study with 10 other athletes in the basement of my dorm, like every Wednesday night. And I was like, what? I was like, that's amazing. I was like, you're exactly the person we've been looking for. I said, do you mind if I come to this thing? So I came to it. It was awesome. He did FCA in high school. So he already had a vision for reaching athletes as well. And so I kind of said, I was like, hey, what do you think about us kind of joining forces here and seeing what God can do? And he was like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. So anyway, he was somebody who would just love the Lord, big personality, a natural gatherer. And he kind of helped to really get things launched. So I think we had gone to our Move Athletes conference, which is an annual Athletes InterVarsity conference. He had brought 3 other football players, kind of started this core group. And over the course of the year, I would say just with natural word of mouth, I mean, it probably grew to maybe like 40 or so students. We started up a pretty solid leadership team. And since that time, we hit the pandemic. And so we kind of shifted to some online ministry for a while. But when we came back, we were still like just as strong. And since then, we've had really, really consistent, amazing chapter presidents. So from Ali to Rachel to Frankie and to now David for next year, we've just had these student leaders who love the Lord so much, who are committed to outreach, or committed to helping to make sure that other athletes like really understand their own relationship with the Lord, and who are like living authentic lives. And I think that's been something where they see these leaders, they see that they're acting differently than the rest of like maybe other people on their team at the parties. But they're still like very involved with their team. So it's not like they're just completely separating themselves from their teammates, but they're learning how to like live authentically, as a Christian, but on their team. And from there, the group has just continued to grow stronger and stronger. We've had, I was just looking at numbers. We ended the year with 80 athletes involved in our chapter.
Wow.
Our athletes chapter. And actually over the past 2 years, our athletes chapter has actually planted an undergrad chapter as well, which usually it's like a general InterVarsity chapter might plant a focus ministry here or there. And I was talking to one of our national InterVarsity leaders, like, I think this is the first time we've seen a focus ministry actually plant something for any student that's involved on campus. And so that's been like a huge highlight for us as well.
That's awesome. That's so encouraging and wonderful to hear. What do you think? I mean, I know obviously having the right leadership structure in place, having the right sort of people on board, not discounting the tremendous prayer and listening to the Holy Spirit, all of those things. What have you noticed? What do you think it is about the openness it seems there is toward Jesus? I mean, what have you seen kind of on the ground? Like why are students, why are they coming? I mean, why give it any time? Why do you think that is?
I think something that seeing across the board with this generation, especially since the pandemic, is there's a lot of loneliness that we're seeing in this generation. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of kind of like meaninglessness that, I've run into students who've kind of felt like, what's the point? So this might be for, non-Christians, even some Christians. And I think people are just truly looking for genuine community, are looking for a place to belong, are looking for a place where they feel seen and known, and really just like looking for some meaning in life. I think that there's like a lot of different ways that like students could be going. I think what they're seeing is that they're seeing these people on campus who are living these different lives, and they truly want to be like them. They can tell if there's something different. And one thing that's been awesome is actually kind of the influence of social media. And so, like, for example, there's this one student named Connor. When he came to faith, he's a Mama student a couple years ago. He would share constantly on social media about what God was doing in his life, how things look different, how he was no longer turning to his old ways of coping, but now how he's turning to Jesus. And he was telling me that people were responding to him all the time, being like, yo, like, what happened? What's going on? Like, I want what you have. People are even posting, like, when they come to our weekly meetings, they're like posting pictures of the room and talking about how these campus ministry spaces are almost like little sanctuaries to them, like a touch of heaven on earth. And, they're just seeing that this is actually a place where they can address the loneliness that they've been feeling, address even the anxiety, knowing that it's a place of hospitality, that they're going to feel loved. And so I think that there's actually a lot of hope with this generation, where I'm seeing lots and lots of students who are very, very open. We're not getting a whole lot of pushback. I think this generation is very much like, you can believe what you want to believe, and we'll believe what we want to believe. And it doesn't really matter. Like, everyone's just kind of open to whatever anybody wants to believe. But that's a good thing for us, because then we can really point them into the direction of Jesus.
Yeah, there's something super cool about that with this generation. But it's also thorny. It's like, whatever,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we're seeing a lot of the same things, and it feels like in the last year, especially, it's like all of a sudden I've got all these young people around, and they're showing up, they're interested in learning about faith. And what's really interesting to me is it's not that they don't like contemporary worship. They just want to make sure it's not a show. They really desire a deeper level, and they're asking great questions. They're also pushing us as a church. We have a young person who's fairly new out of college who's pushing us on our social media stuff and telling me I should get on TikTok and all that, and it terrifies me. But it's such a part of the fabric of how they're experiencing faith and everything else. It's just different. But that's really cool to hear. What do you think, Allison, you're talking to two pastors who are trying to figure out how do we transition or hand off our faith well to the next generation. What are some things that churches are kind of missing or not understanding about college students? And then what would help them do better at it?
Well, I think you just said it. It's like, I think this generation just really desires authenticity and wants to know, how are you living your life different? What does your life look like? I think that is the more I know it's kind of cliche, but the more life you can do with college students, I think the better. I know for me, I try as much as I can to invite students over to my house when I can have meetings, invite them into family life. I have a 3-year-old daughter, and they just absolutely love seeing pictures of her on social media. I make sure to follow all the students on social media too, because that's a big way that I communicate with them, and they'll even open up to me sometimes. So like the pictures, I try to stay up to date on what's happening in their lives even, and especially with the athletes, always following all the athletic pages, commenting whenever they're like highlighted on there. But I think that if churches could focus on like maybe even just like focusing on a smaller group of people, but being even more intentional with a few of them, I think that it's hard for college students. It's hard for me to even get college students to come to some programming that's on campus, like something that's out of their normal routine. And so I think trying to get college students off campus into like a church programming takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of effort. I think time could be better spent actually if just like members of your church try to meet maybe like 1 or 2 students, sending regularly texts of encouragement, of hope. I know that students love when they receive like a daily verse or something, or just like a way that they know that somebody's praying for them. Inviting them to come to a meal after church on a Sunday, even offering to like sit with like if somebody says like, hey, I'd love to like sit with you at church today, we can go to a meal after, living, like trying to help them to like see your actual life is something that they need, because this generation has access to all the information they could ever want. I'm seeing kind of a decline in like a need for mentorship. Like I used to, maybe like 10 years ago, I felt like students really wanted a mentor or somebody they can meet with weekly. And now I'm seeing less and less of that. I feel like what people do want to do is they want to go out for a meal with you. It's like any type of like free food or just like
college,
hanging.
man.
I think that's honestly like the best avenue. And then I think once you really develop a true relationship with them where they see that that you really do care about them, I think they're going to be more open then to being more a part of your church community and the church fellowship, and be easier for them to see themselves as like a part of the community in that way. So yeah, I think spending less time trying to think of what's a program we can make to get them to come to this program. I think spending some time maybe connecting with somebody who's on a campus ministry and saying, hey, is there anybody who we could like, connect with in terms of like wanting to come over for food or to be able to just like hang out on a Sunday or something, send encouragement, like trying to like set up relationships that way. I think that will have more of an impact, especially because college students are so transient. They're potentially only going to be around for like 3 or 4 years. But I think the relationships that you do make are really meaningful. Like I was involved in a church when I was in college that was local. And I did go to a few things here and there. I don't really remember necessarily what the church taught me or offered me, but I do remember the relationships that I had with this woman named Heather, who I would go over to her house on Sunday afternoons, and we would pray, and she would give us food. And I'm still connected with her on social media. She still like checks in every now and then. And that's just so meaningful to me. And I think that that's something that the body of Christ can really offer these college students during this time.
That's awesome. It's such a good reminder. And Jason, you and I talk a lot about this, but it's so tempting just to go, what's a program, a Bible study we can start for this demographic? But what I hear you saying, Allison, is it's relationship. And if something else grows out of that, then fine. But how do we engage with people in real life, in real time? So that's encouraging to me, a good reminder to me to go, okay, start a young adult ministry and let's engage with young adults in their lives and encourage them. So anyway, just an observation, but thanks for that.
Well, and that's an encourage thing for churches that maybe don't have a huge budget and like, all the bells, like you can go meet with people. Like that's, you could probably pull that off.
That's right. You can share a sandwich with a college student. It'll be great.
Allison, how can we be praying for you and supporting you? What are you excited about next? Or is there a challenge that you just would love us to be praying for?
Yeah. I think a way you could be praying for me is I'm always trying to discern how to best use my time. So like I said, supervising a couple other university staff, overseeing 3 different university chapters. I'm also on this leadership team for like national athletes ministry within a university as well. So yeah, just discerning where to be able to use my time best to invest in. We're always asking for more prayers for the harvest field, like more harvest workers. So one of the other roles that I do is looking to find more volunteers with university, people who can also help to staff. I think at Monmouth, we're looking for more campus staff that can help because it really is exploding there, and could use some more support there. Yeah, and I'm always working on my fundraising, so always prayer for fundraising as well.
Yeah, because you raise your own support, correct?
Yes, I do my own support raising. We usually spend most of our summers working towards that, and so that's something I'll be, meeting up with the different leaders, getting prepped for the fall for our new student outreaches. But that's always something I could use prayer for as well.
Absolutely. And if somebody wants to reach someone hears the podcast, they want to reach out to you either to support you or to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
The best way to reach me would be just send me an email, and my email is allison.stump@intervarsity.org.
Excellent. Well, Allison, it's been a blessing having you on today. I really appreciate your time, and I'm so excited the work that you are doing and the work for the kingdom that's happening all around our college campuses. And I pray that you are blessed and encouraged in that work, and hopefully we all can support you in it.
Thank you so much. It really was an honor to be on here today and just to be able to talk with you guys. And yeah, I'm really excited for the work that God's been doing at Monmouth, and grateful just for Tower Hill's support as well.
Jason, so cool to have Allison on with us. And really I love hearing the stories of how God is at work in and through people and prayer, and just how all of this stuff came together there at Monmouth particularly. But we know that that's happening across college campuses and other places too, where God's at work in the lives of leaders and student athletes and others that are coming to faith, and they're open in a way maybe that hasn't been true for generations in a while. There just seems like there's this really profound openness to faith. So grateful for that. Grateful for the story that she got to share with us today.
Yeah, and you sort of wonder if some of that openness is because, and I remember from some of Barna's research, is because like for so many, the gospel itself is so new that many weren't raised in church and are sort of discovering Jesus for the first time and want to know more.
Sure. Yeah. And that was that story that she told about that young man who his friends were like, tell us about what happened to you. Like, what's different? What changed? I mean, how cool is that? And just getting to see authentic, and I heard the word authentic a lot, sharing life with students and not feeling the pressure to have all these fancy programs, but just being available and willing to invest time with them. Not even in a mentoring kind of way, I heard, just in a, hey, come alongside, let's share a meal together and talk about life kind of way. So really good stuff today.
That was interesting to me, a bit about the shift away from feeling like they needed a mentor. I wonder why that is. You know, I don't know if it's just they want something less
Maybe they
formal.
suspect we have nothing real to offer them.
we have nothing
like
to
they're
offer.
going to mentor us, Jason, is what it comes to. I mean, I wonder, or just wanting to, I would suspect are in times where I'm like, I don't want a mentor. I just want someone to like see some potential in me, or see that I'm a person that matters and be a friend to me. And maybe there's some advice and stuff along the way, but not in this, like, I have a life worth emulating and now you follow in my footsteps. I'm like, So I don't know, but yeah, interesting.
Yeah. I didn't get a chance to ask her about the I Once Was Lost book.
Yeah.
Because those guys came out of InterVarsity.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure Don's book. Yeah. Don Everett's there. I'm sure that is kind of required reading for the InterVarsity crew. But if you don't know that book, it's worth picking up. It's short.
Absolutely.
And I would think that all of it still applies. I don't know what their latest numbers and stuff would say, but really talks about how postmoderns come to faith, particularly in the college ministry landscape. But I think it's tracks for others that are coming to faith too. And you trust a, you just learn to trust a Christian, and then you're curious about what they believe, and then you're open to Jesus, and then you seek Jesus. And then, so there's all this stuff happening ahead of a profession of faith. And how do we meet people in the midst of all that? So I'm not sure if I got all the thresholds right, but
you did. That was pretty good. That was pretty good without looking. I think the question I'm interested in thinking about is in those 5 sort of stages to faith, or pre-stages.
Yep.
Have those stages been truncated because there's more openness in this generation to begin with?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd be curious. Maybe we should track that down a little bit and see are we, because the goal of Don's book, if I understand it, was to help us think about where is this person on their journey, their spiritual journey, before they become a follower of Jesus. And so right now, maybe they just need to be able to trust a Christian and think they're normal enough. They're not some crazy person. But what I hear you asking is are those pieces kind of condensed, and there's already an openness to spiritual things that this generation has, just because of the circumstances of the last years, that they're really open in a way that maybe a generation hasn't been for a long time. So maybe that's where we're coming into the story for a lot of these young people. And I love I Once Was Lost has some good ways of helping us think about how to engage with people in that spiritual openness.
And I would go so far as to say that I think that's a great book, pastors, for you to grab and have your leadership team read, or your elders, and just think through it, and then think through, as a church, how can we think about these things as we're trying to reach the next generation? And honestly, they're principles that I think help every single generation you're trying to reach. And it might be a nice, the Dan Ryland method: read a chapter, ask 3 questions. Do that. What a great summer.
That's my favorite method, by the way, because it requires zero preparation on my
That's
part.
right.
That's so good.
That's
good
right.
job, Dan Ryland. Thank you.
Well, thanks, everyone. I hope this has been helpful to you. Again, reach out to us anytime, Jason or Jesse at reclaimleader.com. We see ourselves as your friends from afar, just trying to help talk shop and ministry and help us all to lead flourishing churches. I mean, that's really the whole point, is how can we help each other do better at having churches that are faithful to the gospel. So anyway, thanks so much for listening. As we always say, ministry is hard. It is so much better when we do it together.